The Untold. It's the untold truth about personal trainers and the state of the fitness industry. This is now episode 3 in this 4-part series. Today I'm speaking to Erik Rokeach. In this episode we discuss how you don't have to be a workaholic, an insane hustler, grinder, or be constantly busy to be successful in your business and life. You just have to be you. Myself and Erik are here today to help you get rid of the false beliefs of what you really need to be successful and happy. Here are just a few other things that both myself and Erik share with you. He shares his personal story on how he worked 16 to 18 hour days and not seeing the results he really wanted, despite implementing and applying everything that business coaches had taught him, and how this led to an all-important question that he asked himself: why? Why am I not feeling right? We dive deep into a question of how the personal trainer's obsessive nature with the gym may well be an act of an avoidance from the other important areas of their lives. We also share how coaching might just be the thing that personal trainers need. And if any of those trainers that are listening in amongst us are thinking, I don't need coaching, I'm okay, in all honesty, you may need it most. Plus much more. Stay tuned.
Become a better personal trainer by becoming a better man. Become a better man by applying knowledge from others who've walked across the fire and have a thing or two to say about it. Listen to Joe as he delves into some of the greatest minds of the best coaches in the world, who bring inspiring stories and powerful insights to share about the human condition. Hear how the fitness industry goes only muscle deep, and how a new breed of trainers are using emotional and mindset hacks to improve as men, evolve their game, and make the competition irrelevant. Trigger your pathway to greater fulfillment. With us, stand in the face of fitness. Welcome to the Fit Man Collective.
Gentlemen, my name is Joe Hanney and I'm your host and founder of the Fit Man Collective. As always, thank you for being here and listening to my podcast show. As you know by now, this show is about becoming a better personal trainer, by becoming a better man, a fit man. I ask the all-important questions that as men feel that we can't ask, especially if we've built up this illusion that we're busy, we're comfortable, we're robots almost, and that we know what we're talking about. Selling the image of fitness, our bodies, our health is exhausting and is often done at the expense of the other important areas of our lives: family, love, connection, intimacy, freedom, self-mastery, financial security, to name a few. These are the blind spots in which I hope this show will help you explore. Today we're talking with Erik Rokeach, who is a best-selling author and entrepreneur who has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs throughout the years. During this time he has developed some unique concepts that have been able to create massive transformation in people's lives and businesses. These unique methods have allowed entrepreneurs to live much more successful and happy lives. But before we get into the show, I want to let you know that you can get all the show notes, links, and everything we talk about in this show at www.thefitmancollective.com. And second, make sure if you haven't done so already that you join our closed private Facebook group, the Fit Man Collective, where we'll be having deeper conversations about this show. That is www.facebook.com/groups/the Fit Man Collective. Now, I want to take a moment to introduce you to my next guest today. For most of his adult life, he was unhappy and lost, jumping from one business to another, from one job to another, all in search to figure out who he was, what made him happy, and what made money. No matter how much or how little money he made, it didn't matter. He was still lost and unhappy. He had come to believe that he needed to keep hustling, grinding, go 110%, because that is what everyone else said it took to be successful and be happy. So his focus was always on money, or a business, or more leads, more sales, more clients, and those type of things. What it led to was not something he had expected. It led to Erik lying in a hospital bed with about a day left to live, and a life where he now lives with a chronic disease. And it was all because he was so stressed out of mind, unhappy and lost. He describes to me how in such bad shape he was that even after he survived through this incident, he still continued to live the same way. The beliefs were so deeply ingrained that he didn't believe the way he was living his life according to others in society was what caused the problems. Eventually he had a wake-up call. All it took was destroying multiple relationships, friendships, losing business partners, businesses, and more health problems until he finally realized something needed to change. And that change is what has led him to this point where he's fortunate enough now to help others who are in a similar situation and help guide them to a happier, more well-rounded place so that they can achieve whatever they want in life. Hold tight, because Erik is here with me right now, ready to rock the next episode, Untold, how personal trainers can become better by becoming better men. Okay, super excited to introduce you to our next guest on this show, and that's Erik. Erik and myself go back some time when I asked of him to help me with some testimonial videos, which turned out to be really powerful for my business back then, which was Youth at Studio. And I know Erik since then, including myself, have gone on this massive personal journey and growth. And I'm very interested to hear what he's got to say today. So Erik, welcome to the show.
Joe, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be here. I really appreciate it.
Good. So just so the audience know who you are and what you're doing right now, because I know things have changed. So tell the audience about you and the work that you do today, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Well, I still do the testimonial video stuff, but there was a while where I had backed off. I was working on a couple other things, but as you mentioned, there was also, a little bit of a journey and a process in there with things. So I do a bunch of things. I do coaching. I work with a lot of people in trying to get them from point A to B in their life and their business. I do some business consulting as well. I do testimonial videos and a bunch of other things in between. But as you mentioned, right, there was a period of time where, as I was going through these things and growing the businesses and building businesses, I started to realize that certain aspects of my life maybe weren't where I wanted them to be, or I just wasn't feeling right. And I knew that something was off. So that's what kind of got me to the point where I was like, I was always into I guess you could call it self-development, but I was like, I need to look deeper and I need to work a little bit more at it. So that's kind of the stages where things had led up to at that point. And now it's doing more of helping people with that, is going through the journey. Like I said, testimonial videos and the coaching and a bunch of other things in between.
Yes, because you've got a vast amount of experience of not only talking to entrepreneurs, but people from the fitness industry, personal trainers, studio owners, gym owners, etc. And I know that this whole concept of coaching from the inside out is something that you've developed and worked on yourself a lot, which I'd like to go into more later on in the show. But just for you briefly mentioned it about your story and identifying that you just didn't feel quite right. Something just didn't feel, I don't know, it wasn't quite fulfilled. Can you recall the moment or there was a particular moment then that you felt that, or was it something that was ongoing in the background, should we say, and over time it just developed into this huge thing?
I think it was a combination of both. It obviously had built up over time, and a lot of it attributed to was we are all taught as entrepreneurs to grow and succeed. And if you don't have those pieces, or if you're not, maybe you want to grow faster or you're not growing fast enough, to search out and look for help.
Yeah.
So I was constantly learning and studying and working with mentors, and they always pushed me. I always allowed them to push me in certain directions, and I always jumped into it with the focus on the business instead of, is this actually who I am, or is this right for me? And so for years, I kind of was always in that mode. It was always just business first, kind of putting everything else in the background, I guess you could say. And most of the things I had done, since it was business first, they necessarily weren't really who I was. And I do remember many years back, I remember it was in November, and I was working like a crazy person. I was working 16, 17, 18 hours a day. And that's recordable work. That's not, sitting on Facebook. That's actual work.
Mm-hmm.
And I burned out, and I was like not seeing the results that I really wanted. And I was like, what's going on? Why am I working all these crazy hours? Why am I beating myself up? I'd already had health issues. Why am I making my health stuff even worse? And everything that I'm doing is just not doing what I want. It's not making me feel the way that I want. And I remember it was just a moment, and I was just like, screw it. You know what? I was like, what if I just stop working that hard? What if I just let it go? And I was really worried about it. And somehow, I don't know how, I was just able to stopped working that hard. But I had all those feelings that a lot of entrepreneurs have. Like when I wasn't working, I felt guilty. I felt bad that I wasn't pushing to reach my dreams and goals. And I had gone through, and that's when I was like, I need to do all that extra time I was spent on working on the business. I was like, that I had stopped doing. That was the time I dove into even more in myself and getting help on that and trying to really dive in and work on that. I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but it's a combination of, leading up to it and kind of that one point in that month in November that I remember.
It's very interesting how your focus was so much on business, which we can all fall into the trap of. But it wasn't until you kind of took a step back and said, no more business going on now. That must have been a moment of really real uncertainty, as you mentioned. What kind of sprung to mind to, I suppose you had so much time, well, you felt that you had so much time on your hands because you'd stepped back from the business. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, how did you know it was other areas, whether it was to do with yourself internally, something else was going on there? Was it to do with relationship? Was it to do with your health? Was it at that point that you realized that there's a whole lot more to this than just business? Because we always talk about it. We always hear people talk about it, but it's not until you actually feel it, which I imagine you did at that moment. Yeah.
And there was, you actually touched on something, right? There was the health issues, but I had also had major, like very good relationships, okay, I'm going to spend my life with these people type of relationships. And I had multiple of them over years, and I had destroyed all of them. Mm-hmm. Like it was, there are two sides to every story, and both people kind of have to have conflict for things to not work out. But I was the lead cause of it for each one. And that was also another thing that kind of led up, and I was, dealing with a lot of pain with that. And it was just, and the other thing too was, it was all the stuff in the business that I was doing. Like it's hard to say. It's not like, I don't want to say that it wasn't working the way that I wanted, but at the same time, it wasn't. Like everything they were teaching me, I was applying and doing, and elements of it were working, but just, it wasn't at the same time. And it just didn't make me feel any better. So every time I jumped to a new program, a new coach, or a new mastermind, it didn't feel right. And just something was off. So I knew that if I kept jumping into and focusing on all the business stuff, and it hadn't led me to where I wanted to be based on the way I felt, then I knew that it had to be something different. I knew that it was internal. And I knew after looking at those relationships and going through a couple coaching things that didn't work out and actually kind of made things worse for me, I knew that it was an internal thing, and that was the direction that I really needed to shift and focus on. But I had no idea that it was going to lead me on the journey that it did, and put me in the direction of where it did. But I'm very happy for it.
Good. And there's a few things that I picked out from your answer there, which I'll remind myself to bring up later. But one thing that did strike me was, and I'm sure you can speak of great experience with this, with working with many personal trainers, how you turn to business. That kind of, is that what you see tends to happen with the personal trainer? They get so obsessive with looking good, getting their body in shape, spending a massive amount of time in the gym. If it's not thinking about what their next workout is, it's probably what to eat next. Which on the outside of things, we can see that they are possibly neglecting them other key areas, which are actually going to make them more fulfilled. But they fell into that trap of thinking that the gym itself is going to make them fulfilled. Do you see that a lot with trainers, coaches, especially?
Yeah, I see that in any element where there's sides where there can be an extreme to it, personal training and business, and relationships. And what I've found for the majority of them after working with people and also working on myself is, they'll do that to go into the gym, let's say a personal trainer, to get in shape, to look good. Obviously, there's a little bit of a psychological thing, is that there's a constant push and an extreme with that. But what it really boiled down to is, it really came down to that fact that they're really avoiding. They're doing this and using this as an excuse to avoid what's really going on inside that may need the work.
That's a great point.
To work on. And most people, like I've talked to, them, are like, I don't know about that. And they're like, and I'll ask them, like, well, okay, you went to the gym 3 times today, and you did this, this, and this. Why? Well, it makes me feel good. It does. Okay. If you're constantly searching for that thing to make you feel good, and you're always at the gym and it hasn't gotten you that yet, then don't you think that that's something going on inside, and that by going to the gym, you're using that to search for it, but also avoid maybe some other issue that's going on, and they kind of get quiet after that. And they're like, oh, I never looked at it that way. So there's an avoidance issue when it comes to a lot of that stuff.
And I suppose it's not entirely their fault. And we've talked about this previously via email, etc. It's who you're buying into, possibly, because not many coaches out there really get you to look on the inside, do they?
No, it's scary. That's why. It doesn't sell. I mean, it does, but it's not sexy. Like, people want easy, quick, fast. As well as I do, the internal journey is generally not easy, quick, and fast. Especially if you've been going at it the ways that you have, it's an unlayering process. So it's a little scary.
I especially can vouch for that, especially when you do, because a lot of it involves a lot of it does involve going back to childhood and reminding yourself of your experiences and habits and patterns and the way that we may have been programmed, the certain beliefs that we took on via people as we were growing up. And I know something that you're really talking about now is the identity of ourselves, etc. That it kind of gets lost in all of that, and we try and follow or replicate other people's what we feel is success, and buying into, as we just mentioned, other coaches that might not have it down as well as we think they have it, which only leads to further problems. So talking of the possibly a coach not being able to, or not many coaches out there, because I know for me, when I was searching for this additional help, it was difficult to find that coach in the fitness industry to help me with the inside stuff. How much of a benefit or impact do you think this would have? I'm going to bring it back to the fitness industry, personal training, if they did get this type of coaching to not only them, but also their clients.
It'll help everybody, especially the people who think they don't need it. Because generally people think they don't need it are the ones who need it the most, because they haven't been aware of the process of, maybe the real self-actualization that they need to have about themselves. Because you think about it, right? As a personal trainer and you have clients, you're constantly working on people and trying to get in better shape, lose weight, feel better, all those things. And people hire coaches like that for the physical side of things, but it does work the mental. Why don't you have a coach that actually works on the thing that controls all of that? And that's your mind. So it's really funny to me that people don't view the mind, which controls all of it, as important as it is just the physical appearance. So it's really important. I think it'll benefit anybody, a personal trainer, and you name it. And even if you don't think you have it, I guarantee you that a coach can help you pull a lot of that stuff out, and make you just be aware of certain things that you've never seen before. And even if that type of coaching doesn't necessarily guarantee, a massive change in your life or results, just the fact of being aware of some of these things you hadn't been aware of before is worth it. And it's worth it to have a coach. And that was a big eye-opener for me as well. So it'll help everybody, guaranteed.
I suppose it's that objectivity and perspective and then blind spots that you just mentioned that we don't see ourselves that a coach can add and help you with. And how important was a coach for you, Erik? Because I know, like myself, we've been on many courses, had many mentors, but it's been in more or less a group environment. For me personally, the biggest change for me was when I worked with somebody on a very individual basis that was very focused on me. That really had the greatest impact. And not to say that the other courses, mentors didn't have an impact at all. I did learn from it. It did make me take a step closer to whatever success meant to me at the time. But it was when I had that coach that really helped me identify, like you've just mentioned, the blind spots, gave me that perspective that I've never thought about before, that objectivity, which I didn't quite get from friends, family members, because there was a personal emotion attached to it. How important was a coach for you?
I agree with what you're saying, that, the one-on-one stuff is really important to this. Now, gurus and marketers are like, do group coaching with this stuff, which I'm great with, business wise, it's very important to do that because it's much easier to scale. But also in that environment, when we start diving into elements of identity and mind and mindset and all those personal type of issues, it's very private, and we're already scared enough to have others, think, oh my God, there's something wrong with this guy. So that's why we don't open up. So when you have somebody that you can sit down with one-on-one and trust them, you tend to open up a little bit more with them. And you're never going to get to the direction or where you want to be unless you're 100% completely honest with yourself and with somebody else. So if it's something that people want to make that shift and there's a lot of group coaching, sure, you can do that. but you have to be 100% comfortable being open with everybody else out there. One-on-one coach makes that a little bit easier because you know that's not going to go anywhere else. So for me, having that one-on-one, it was key. And honestly, I still have that. And it's because it's that important. And there's group elements as well with people that I've created over time, but the one-on-one, I can honestly say there's elements of me. I'm probably a little bit more open with the one-on-one help than I am in some of the group stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think we touched on it briefly, but if you could expand on it, is there any, because of all your experience with working and interviewing and identifying with people, trainers, that these challenges that they're having, is there any real commonalities amongst personal trainers? I want to take or steer this towards the male, because we talked about how this is such a vulnerable topic, sensitive topic, and being in the fitness industry is quite a masculine, it's a manly thing. It's not like we can have this conversation on the gym floor with another trainer. So is there kind of any traps that people are falling in, or is there any real commonality that you're seeing amongst personal trainers so that you could help them? So if they're listening to this podcast right now, they could actually sit there and think, shit, that's me. I can identify with that.
Honestly, I think a lot of people listening to this can already identify it just by what we're talking about it, just based on the way that they're feeling with certain things. For everybody's different, so the commonalities sometimes are a little bit difficult to point out. But if it comes back down to you doing all these things and you're not feeling the way that you want to feel, there's probably something that's going on. And I think one of the issues is that's a common thing, and it kind of makes a lot of the stuff worse for us, is our social media trap and the comparison element. So for a personal trainer who's looking at, oh my God, look at this guy, he looks this way, or this guy's got this many clients, these types of things, and I don't have that yet. What ends up happening is when you start focusing so much on that and seeing so much of it, you start leaning towards, how do I get more of that? You start comparing more and more, and you start diving into anything that'll get you there. And you don't ask or stop yourself and say, is this actually me? Is this actually right for me? That gets blindsided. So the comparison element and looking at what everybody else is doing in social media is a really common thread that I see with every single personal trainer out there who's not only trying to get in shape themselves, but also looking for clients. So I know that is a definite big one.
And talking of commonalities, I think one thing that could really create that uncontested market space for them is we spoke about it, is kind of go after that coaching for themselves. So it adds that different element to them, so they come across a whole lot more, can add more value to their clientele, because it will then help them understand their clientele. Because I don't know about you, but this is my belief. I don't see many personal trainers that was ever overweight themselves, and majority of clients they will work with are people that want to lose weight. So we can we are advised to relate to the client as much as we possibly can, but it's not really, if you really start to profile that client, really dig deep into their feelings, emotions, etc., that you can really understand that client, because we've never been overweight ourselves. Though the emotions are very similar. So if it was, I wanted to chase more money, that emotion is very similar we want to chase more money to gain more, because we think that's going to give us confidence.
Right.
Same feeling as a lady who wants to lose weight, because she feels that might give us confidence. But in both situations, the lady loses weight, doesn't feel no different, still lacks confidence. We gain more money, but still don't feel no different and lack confidence still. You see? So I think it creates that uncontested market space for the coach as well, the personal trainer, especially because it's just an aggressive, overcrowded market space. And that kind of leads me on to the next question, really, is how did you identify the person to help you, Erik, the coach? How do you go about looking for this coach, should we say?
So that's a tough thing. And I'll be honest, and I'll tell you where it started out. It started out with like professional help and therapy. Because as looking for a coach, most of them, if you look out there, are really the ones that you see and that you find are usually generally very vocal. They're very big and good at spreading their message. But the thing that I noticed was I'm a little bit more of a reserved guy, and I didn't want some guy who was really boisterous. And I knew that. Like, I want somebody that can get a little bit deep and wasn't so surface level. And it's very hard to find that in our industry, in any industry, to find a coach who's a little bit more reserved, because if they're a little bit more reserved, a lot of times their marketing is reserved. And so it makes it harder to find them. And I'd kind of been searching, and I was like, well, maybe I should just try, a professional. Let me try talking to like psychologists first, because they already have that. And that was how I'd gotten into it. And I found that, and I'd looked for somebody, and that helped a lot. And as I had done that, and I kind of unlayered a lot of the stuff I was going through, I would see a person here or there, and then I would start to look in that direction, and then I would see more opportunities to it. So to answer the question, it comes back down to just kind of, you have to be patient, but you've got to look for somebody that doesn't just resonate with you on like, a business level, saying that they're going to guarantee this. You got to find somebody that you feel that you can trust and actually be open with. And those are the people that you want to look for. That's how I did it. And I'm very happy that I actually had done that and found the coaching in that way instead of the ways that I was doing it.
Mm-hmm. That was very important for me as well, to know that somebody had more or less walked into my shoes. And mine was really looking for that father figure, that older brother, should I say, because I didn't really have that as a youngster, as a child. So I needed to know that they understood me on that level, but also, similar to yourself, very reserved, very introvert, should we say, that I wanted it to be it's a sensitive topic, discussion that I wanted. I didn't want it to be kind of out there and open. And you're right, you picked up on many good points in which I sourced a coach for myself, which was, have they been in my steps? Can they relate to me a lot? And can they, as I've said a lot of times on this podcast, is offer me the objectivity and the perspective, insight that I probably wouldn't gain anywhere else. So thank you for being so open about that.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to add to that too, which is really important. So, I mentioned the professional help side of things. Now, I was of the point that I had originally thought that if I sought out that type of help, there was something wrong with me. There was a stigma to that. And there's that stigma a lot of people have. That they think, I'll do that. There's something wrong. I'm screwed up, and people are going to find out about me. But then I'd come back to the answer. I was like, man, well, we have coaches and personal training coaches that help us get in shape. Why don't I have someone who's trained in the mind in working with some of that stuff? What's wrong with that? That's more important. And that's how I got comfortable with it. And so that's why I'm comfortable in sharing with it. There's nothing wrong with me. It was just, I knew that avenue was an avenue to go down once I realized that it was important to have somebody that can help me in the mind and understand that. And once I had that, then that's where the other coaches had come in. So that is an element as well. Like if someone has a tough time finding a coach that deals with this, there's nothing wrong with that, seeking the professional guy, the PhD or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. And that's very important as well. And talking of that, and which reminded me of something, is I'm not quite sure how you could answer this. I'm not sure if I could even answer it. How, I suppose we're trying to save many people years of experiencing this, and then coming to, for me, it was the age of 30, 31 to come to that realization that something I just didn't think quite fulfilled. How does one come to understand that this early on in their journey, should we say, their life?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit again. Can you
Sorry. Yeah, so I suppose the question that I'm really getting to is, it took me to the age of 30, 31 to come to this realization. What would be the best way that somebody that's listening to this is probably a little bit younger, 25, 24, they're probably not open to this, they're not ready for this just yet. Do you have any advice for them? Or is it a case of they kind of need to experience this journey themselves, and kind of, with most things, we have to kind of, this is an exaggeration or an extreme of it. We have to hit rock bottom before we want to change things. Do you feel that people can identify this before it has to get to that place?
That is a tough question to answer. I think that's everything. I believe they can, and I feel that they can. But you're right. They're that age where they, starting out, they're focused. They say all the gung ho stuff and going down that direction. But I believe they can. And the reason I believe they can is because I had a client who was 22 or 23, and we did work on a lot of this stuff. But he had also been he had been journey of it for a few years, but he was also in the health and fitness industry. And he had realized how much work he had to help his clients on the emotional identity and mindset type of stuff. And so he saw the power in that. So we started at a very young age and working with that. And so he's got that. But there's such a big push marketing and media wise on, the opposite of that. that it is hard to do that. You have to start young, as they would say. And I was also fortunate enough where I was coaching a lot of young athletes, who were in their end of middle school, high school, prep school years, where we would do some of this work as well. And they carried that over, so they have that. But it just comes down to the awareness of the individual. I think as time goes on, we're kind of still scratching the surface in this area, but I think as time goes on and it becomes more open and accepted to talk about these things, it's going to become easier and easier. And I don't know about you, but we're here talking about this, but I've noticed a massive shift in this direction. So I already noticed that changes are taking place and that people are accepting it more. And one of those things you can is how much everybody meditates now. 5 years ago, you wouldn't even laughed at if you would openly admit that. So the shift is happening. I think it's just going to be more of an acceptance culturally and society-wise, where people are really going to understand how important this stuff really is at a young age.
That's a great answer, and I believe in everything that you said then, and it's a very nice way to kind of summarize this whole show around the positiveness, how this is getting more out there in the open, and more people, even at a younger age, are really seeking this sort of coaching out. Because I know that if I had this, or if I was aware of this back then, I know I'd be a whole lot more fulfilled, a whole lot quicker, a whole lot sooner. I wouldn't have to go through the painful experiences that I did. And again, just for those that are listening, Erik, because I know you've got a lot going on right now, just where's the best place that these people could find out more about you? I know that you've got a brand new book out, which is on my wish list to read. But if you could give people an insight of that, and also where people could find you, that'd be great.
Yeah, simple. You can just go to my site. It's erikrokeach.com. I don't know if you have show notes, but I'll spell it out for people so that way, just in case if you're listening, I type it in. But
I've already noticed that I've not mentioned your surname.
Okay. So I'll spell it out then. It's Erik with a K, Erik, and then Rokeach. It's ROKEACH.com. And you'll find, I'm glad that you actually, we're chatting about this, because a lot of stuff we're talking about, people can read about in elements. And it basically kind of shares the brutal, honest truths about, what it's like going through living your life as an entrepreneur, as a fitness pro, as a personal trainer. And a lot of interesting things that I haven't found people talk about, or experiences that I've been through that most people would be afraid to talk about, I'll share over there. So it's part of my goal is to shift people in the direction like we're talking about, and be more open about it. Because when it comes down to it, all we really want is we just want to be happy and feel good. And if what you're doing now is not doing that for you, then it's got to be probably an internal thing, and you need to make some changes. So the site is there to help with that. And it's something that I'm very proud of and excited to be able to do.
Great, Erik. I just want to say that I appreciate you. I appreciate you and everything about you, and everything that you've said on this podcast, because I know it's going to be very valuable to the people listening. So I appreciate you, sir.
No, thank you. And I appreciate you being open and talking about this as well, because again, it's something that needs to be said. And I give you a lot of credit for doing that and kind of diving down this avenue, because it's scary for a lot of people. And I give you a lot of credit. So thank you.
You're welcome. There you have it, men. Erik Rokeach sharing a glimpse of his new model for entrepreneurial success and happiness. Again, you can find out more about Erik at www.erikrokeach.com. Now, in the meantime, if you have any questions about this show, then head over to the Fitman Collective Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/the Fitman Collective, where we'll be having deeper conversations about this. It is also a confidential place where we'll be helping each other become better personal trainers by becoming better men. Finally, be sure to check back and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss part 4 in this series of Untold. Next up, we speak to Ryan Mickler, founder of the Order of Man and Iron Council. Ryan boasts a vast amount of experience in showing you what it means to be a man and how returning to the roots of masculinity helps this. So, if you're a man and you're ready to live up to your full potential in your relationships, business and community, then you won't want to miss this episode.
Thank you for listening to the Fitman Collective podcast. This is your life. Don't settle for mediocre. Don't settle for average. Don't even settle for great. Beware the average man who attracts an average companion. Beware the great man who believes they've achieved everything and appears just a little too comfortable. Don't be them. Become the patient wolf. The Fit Man Collective is waiting for you. Know yourself. With us, reinvent yourself and your place in this world. Body, mind, health, relationships, career, money, all of it, and more. We can never be caught. We can never be categorized. The Fit Man Collective reinvents the future of the Fit Pro. The Fit Man makes his own fate. Join us at thefitmancollective.com.